All right, everybody. I just got back from Super Mario Brothers. And there's a little funny story behind me going to see the film. First of all, I didn't know it was getting released this early. And my wife and I were talking about this movie for a while. At least I have. And I told my wife it was going to be a massive hit. And she refused to go see it because it was animated. And she has this thing where she doesn't want me to go see the movies alone because she thinks it's weird and creepy if a man my age goes without kids, because my kids are all grown now and older. And so none of my family members really wanted to see it except me. And I just texted my wife this afternoon. I said, hey, they got a couple seats. We could go to a 6 or 7 o'clock. And we ended up going to the 7 o'clock showing. And she didn't realize, I told her it was for the Mario movie, but she didn't realize it was for Mario Brothers. And she wasn't happy about going. And I actually did a poll on Facebook on what people thought if I went by myself. And all the guys were like, oh, it's totally okay. The girls were like, it'd be a little creepy, but they admitted that that's their problem, not mine. One friend suggested I actually wear a press hat and start handing out, it was pretty funny, hand out business cards for them to check out the YouTube channel. I thought that was kind of funny. But what's great about that is she walked out and she said that was way better than I was expecting it to be. So let's talk about this movie, and I'm going to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I am going to mention something at the very end, though, so for people who don't want to know anything about the movie, I'm going to give you the basic plot here in a second, but for people who don't want to know anything about the movie, you can log off after I give my score, because I'm going to talk about one of the major miscastings of the voice actors in this film. So there were quite a few, and for people who want to go look on their own or look after the, when the movie's done, it's Fred Armisen's character. So Fred Armisen has a role in this film, which I thought was totally miscast. It's a character that is a property of Nintendo that I always envisioned what the voice would be, and they totally missed the mark. Like, it does not match the character at all, and I'm not going to say who it was until I get to the end of the review. But let's talk about the elephant in the room first. There's been a lot of controversy about Chris Pratt playing Mario. He did a wonderful job, and so did Charlie Day as Luigi. These guys were perfectly cast. You really couldn't tell it was either of them. I could tell it was more, with Charlie Day, I could tell it was more him, but with what they did with Chris Pratt, he fit the character perfectly. He wasn't the typical Mario, though, and there was one thing I was waiting to hear in the whole movie, and it was, a Mario. And they never got to that, unfortunately. And there were a couple of scenes where it could have been totally done, but they didn't do it, and that missed the mark for me. Like, there were a couple of opportunities where it would have been amazing to hear that, but they didn't do it. And they explain his kind of lack of accent at the very beginning of the movie. There's a very clear explanation. They get it all done at the very beginning so that people aren't wondering about it as they go through the film. But as far as his performance goes, it was stellar. In fact, all the voice actors did a stellar job. You had Seth Rogen in this. You had Anna Taylor-Joy. She plays Princess Peach, and she did a fantastic job. Everybody played their roles incredibly well. So here's the interesting thing. Who is this movie made for? Well, I think it's made for everybody. I grew up on the Nintendo. Nintendo came out when I was a real little kid. I used to go over to my friend's house. He now works for Disney, which is kind of funny. But I would go to his house. We would play Nintendo all the time. We grew up together. He's my oldest friend, from school. I started, we were friends all the way back in kindergarten. So we've been playing Nintendo ever since then. We used to play Kung Fu and Super Mario Brothers, and those are just staples. So this movie is made for people my age. It's made anybody from my age and anybody who played the original Nintendo all the way up to the kids today. And I'm going to tell you, if you are a kid of the 80s and you played the Nintendo, there are so many Easter eggs in this movie to watch on screen. Pay attention to a lot of the background in certain scenes. There's all kinds of really cool things in this movie. The basic story behind this is that Mario and Luigi live in the real world, and they get sucked into this fantastic world, and they get sent to separate places, and basically Luigi gets held captive by Bowser, and Mario has to go save him and enlist the help of Princess Peach. That's the basis of the movie. And my gosh, was this beautifully animated. It's by the company Illumination, who did, the Minions movies and all of those. And this is one of the best looking animated movies I have seen in years. It also helps being familiar with these properties. And there are lots of things in this movie that I don't want to spoil. I'm going to talk a little bit about them at the very end for people who want to go in with no spoilers. The music was great. They had a lot of themes from the games, a lot of things that happened in the games. Like this was a very well thought out and executed film. It was thoroughly pleasing and enjoyable. This is a movie you just got to go in and enjoy and not be critical about. Critics hate this movie. It has about a 50% by critics, but the audience score is near 100%. And there's a reason for that, because it was done well. And this movie, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to make a crap ton of money, and it's going to definitely get a sequel. And I can tell you that both Chris Pratt and Charlie Day are already talking about doing a sequel, which would be freaking awesome. So this was a beautiful movie to look at. The music was great. They had some songs from the 80s, which was great. Like, this was totally a throwback to people who grew up in the 80s. And it was so well done, but still accessible to the kids today. So at the end of the day, let's talk about my score on this. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I would like to give it more than 4. But again, there was, the me, a Mario. They didn't do that. Like, how can you not do that in the film? How? There were little things like that bothered me, and it wasn't anything new. There wasn't anything like groundbreaking that they did. But what was there was executed extremely well. So I can't give it any more than 4 stars. The voice acting was phenomenal. Jack Black did great as Bowser. Everybody did their roles extremely well. And stay a little bit for the credits. There is a little bit with some of those characters after the credits. All right, so there's my score. So anybody who doesn't want to know anything about the film, now you can log off. The part of the spoilers are going to come in now. I'm still not going to spoil the whole movie, but I do want to talk about some things that were done that some people might want to be surprised when they go see it themselves. All right, so let's talk a few spoilers here. First of all, the character that was completely miscast was Cranky Kong. All right, I love Nintendo. I love their franchises. I love especially the Donkey Kong franchise. I have Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on the Nintendo Switch. I played it through. People talked about how amazingly hard it was. It's one of the few games I got through with no help, was able to finish it, and it was beautiful. We get to see Donkey Kong Land in this movie. You have everything in this. You have the typical Mario, and there's a scene at the very end that is really freaking awesome that will bring you back to Mario being Mario. You've got Super Mario Kart is in this film. You've got it all. Like, they really intertwined a lot of things into the story and made it really well. It was really well done. So it was interesting to see all that stuff, but Cranky Kong, Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong, was totally miscast. You look at the character, you have an idea, hitting Donkey Kong with a stick in the games and stuff. You don't envision the voice that they decided to go on coming out of that character. Like, it was all just utterly miscast. And I don't blame that on Fred Armisen. I think that's the fault of the people directing the film and what they wanted out of him. He might have been able to play an old man, but he doesn't sound like an old man or a cranky person at all. And so I was very disappointed. That's another reason why I'm kind of knocking it down to a star. It was the missed opportunities, and also that this voice was miscast. If they would have fixed, if they would have had him say, a me, a Mario, and they would have fixed the voice cast for Cranky Kong, I would have probably given this 4.5 stars, and not quite 5, because, like I said, they didn't do anything new in this film. But what was there was so excellently executed. Like I said, one of the most enjoyable animated films to come out in years. All right, so if you guys have seen it, what do you think? If you haven't seen it, take the family. It's freaking awesome. Take the kids. Have fun. And I will be doing more movie reviews this summer because there's a heck of a lot of movies coming out, and I love the fact that I have a movie theater right next to my house now, which is awesome. All right, we will see you on the next review.